What does an abandoned science centre, an inaccessible footbridge and a complete and total disaster costing £14 million in government spending have in common? Let's find out.
Have you ever walked down the scenic beaches of Irvine, where the sand dunes soar across the span of the coast? You may have noticed something hidden in the sandy dunes that is out of the ordinary. A massive glass-windowed building with a mound of grass covering its top hides on the other side of the River Irvine. Across the river stands a footbridge to access the once popular museum in all of its glory. But there's one problem. The bridge is missing the centre of its structure, disabling public access to the big idea on the other side. The building currently stands empty, with not a whisper to be heard or a laugh to be shared. It almost feels haunted in its eerie existence, with the front doors locked, sealing its interesting history within.
It's not hard to see that this place isn't meant to be accessed by the public, but what isn't so clear to see, or easy to understand, is the reason why.
Today we're going to be jumping into the history of the big idea to find out what on earth happened to this place. If you were to wander through the hallways of the big idea at Irvine, you might think that everyone has just packed up and gone home for the day, leaving all the science gadgets and equipment out in the open. However, perhaps it will surprise you to find out that this place has been derelict for almost 20 years. Going back to before the concept of a science museum was even considered, the location of the big idea was actually an explosives manufacturing site, owned by none other than Alfred Nobel, who, if you didn't know, created the first stick of dynamite way back in 1866. He was responsible for the well-known Nobel Prize, named after Alfred. Many famous faces have received this gracious award in the past, such as Albert Einstein and Martin Luther King Jr. After searching high and low up and down the British Isles, Alfred finally settled on the Ayrshire Peninsula, which stretches from Stevenson to Irvine, as the best location for his vision, and in 1871 he established the British Dynamite Factory, which at the time was the largest dynamite factory in the world. A century later, the council decided it would be best for a new monument to take its place, and in the 1990s an idea rose, a big idea. As a thanks to all of Scotland's many fantastic inventors, a building was constructed for the turn of the century to host a wide array of scientific expeditions, with a tribute to many famous inventors such as Alexander Fleming, the man who discovered penicillin, and John Logie Baird, the inventor of the television. Accompanying these famous Scots were 5 different areas of intellectual discovery within the building, which consisted of communications, control, material, mechanisms, and power, with respective contraptions and interactive equipment on display. As well as this, there was a theatre and a classroom that would seat up to 32 people, where lessons and demonstrations would take place in fun and exciting ways.
Now you're probably wondering, well, this place sounds like a fantastic idea for a school trip, so the question is, where did it all go wrong?
Well, with several different investors chipping in for the big project, like the Millennium Commission and Scottish Enterprise, all seemed to be going in favour of the director of the project, John Muirhouse. And it did at the start. The first year of the Big Idea's opening was way back in 2000, and it was a commercial success, with a record of 200,000 visitors attending the Scientific Museum. However, after only 3 years of public exposure, the museum had to close its doors indefinitely after only receiving 50,000 attendance in 2003. This was roughly 20,000 visitors below what was required to keep the building operating with all its equipment and apparatus. Many people believe that the reason the attendance at the museum dwindled so dramatically was due to the fact that in 2001, the highly popular Glasgow Science Centre opened its doors, stealing all enthusiastic science lovers from this site in Irvine to the big city 30 miles up the road. This explanation seems to make sense, as Glasgow is perfectly centred in Scotland's central belt, making it easier to attract people from all areas of the country, opposed to Irvine, all the way on the west coast, tucked away, out of sight and out of mind. This doesn't mean that the closure of the Big Idea isn't a shame though, as the museum really did have a lot to offer and a great amount of potential. The classes and theatre now sit idly silent, waiting to be filled once again, which sadly may never happen. The demonstrations and displays have been left unplugged and are now collecting dust, along with the corridors which faintly remember the sound of excited children running up and down them searching for the coolest exhibit. The bridge of Scottish innovation, which once used to transport people across the River Irvine with its incredible rolling mechanism, stands detached, never to provide passage over the river again. It's hard to tell what's going to happen to the big idea in the future, if anything at all. What we know for definite though is that even after its enthusiasts have depleted and attention faded, it still holds some mystery behind its doors. Back before the building was constructed, Ayrshire Primary School buried a time capsule underneath what is now the reception desk of the building, which is still patiently waiting there today. We don't know when the time capsule will be retrieved, and only a small number of people actually know what was placed inside. Things like this always keep a spark of hope in people looking for a brighter future, with hopefully better business management as well. Many people have advocated for more funding, a reimagination of the project, or a completely new building idea altogether. What we know for definite though is that only time will tell when it comes to the big idea's future. From an explosive start to a disappointing finish, the building still stands today as a reminder that not all big ideas are good ones. If you liked this video, make sure to follow us at Ayrshire Film Company for more interesting content in and about Ayrshire's hidden gems. Have a blether in the comments as well if you remember the big idea when it was up and running. Memories, stories, anything. Let us know if you think it was a great project or a complete and utter waste of money.
Thanks for watching another Hidden Ayrshire. Keep an eye out for the next one coming in June. Want to say a huge thanks to photographer Steve McKendrick, whose photos you've seen in the film. Obviously the big idea now is completely closed off, it's inaccessible, there's nothing to see, so it was quite difficult figuring out how to tell this story, and his photos really allowed us to do that. Plus, I don't know if it comes across, but it was really cold and really windy, so staying outside for a long amount of time wasn't the most enjoyable. But I have to say, huge credit to the volunteers who were involved in making this from start to finish. They did a fantastic job. So, we'll see you on the next one.